1. We recently moved house. We've been looking for years and this place was actually a fair price. Yes, it needed redecorating. The previous people smoked inside, but nothing major, so a bargain, right? Well, it started by hearing footsteps upstairs. My hubby and I joked about it being haunted and put it down to the neighbors. Maybe it just sounds like it's above our heads. When in reality, it's just next door in their house upstairs. So, this goes on for months and becomes the norm. Well, next door went away a few days ago, but the footsteps continue. Summertime rolls around a few months ago. I'm the type of person who feels the heat. Usually, I'll get the fans out on full blast. Well, not in this house. It's constantly cool. I even needed a jumper on this summer. Another odd thing, the smell of toast. At night, we randomly smell toast. This happens around once a week. After a while, I googled it, and apparently it could mean an electrical fault or dust on your pipes. So we get the plumber and electrician round, family friend. And everything checks out. We also smelt TCP one night in the hallway. Also, whilst I was finishing cleaning, I found a small card for a hotel on my sofa. I'd literally just tied it. There's no way I would have missed it. So I take a photo and send it to my husband. He responded to me and said he'd look into it. Came back 5 minutes later and said it's a Spanish hotel that was demolished 10 years ago. So we're stumped on that one. A few weeks ago, hubby and I were watching TV in bed. He goes to the toilet and comes back to bed, looking pale. I ask what's wrong. He lets out a deep breath and says, "Something ran at me." I asked what he meant, and he said, "I came out of the toilet, and in the corner of my eye it looked like a figure ran at me. This place is fucking haunted." He doesn't believe in ghosts either, so hearing him say that sent chills down my spine. We put it down to eyes playing tricks, illusion, light trickery. Anything but ghosts, basically. Last week my children come screaming down the stairs with a look of pure terror on their faces. They're 8 and 6. My 8-year-old says, "Someone was knocking on the door. Where is Dad?" Dad was at the shops, and the door unlocked itself. I call them down and ask them to show me what they mean. So we all head upstairs and my 8-year-old demonstrates and shows me the lock. I suggested that maybe it wasn't locked properly, and that maybe the knocking was a rat in the loft. I don't know what else to suggest at this point. Oh, I almost forgot about this one. A few months ago, I was sitting in bed, and heard creaking behind me on the top of the stairs. You know when someone's deliberately making a floorboard squeak by moving pressure from one leg to the other? Like, For about 40 seconds, it was constantly squeaking. My children like to play a spy game, so I assumed it was one of them. I smiled and said, "I know you're there." The squeaking ceased, but I get no response. So I get up and go to talk to them, and they're not there. They're downstairs. We're still in contact with the people who used to live here. Sometimes we'll get each other's posts, so one of us will drop it off to the other. They're friendly enough, and we'll often have a small chat. Well, I jokingly said, "Don't suppose you had any strange happenings while you were there? Not haunted or anything?" and started laughing. Her face dropped and she said, "No, of course not. Anyway, I've got a pot on the stove. Better make sure it's not boiling over. Take care." And shut the door abruptly. More information. We have a dog who hates everyone apart from us. He's not bothered by the house. I thought animals were supposed to be more in tune with paranormal stuff. It's just weird at this point. Half of my brain is screaming ghosts, and the other half thinks there must be a logical explanation. I don't know anymore. 2. I'm not sure where to start, as I could write a book of all my experiences. I don't necessarily want my post to blow up. I'm more so looking for other people's opinions. Let me preface with this. I'm mortified of dolls. Porcelain little baby dolls, sometimes even just teddies or toys. Dolls make me want to exit my body from fear. Now, this is leading up to why? I grew up in an extremely haunted duplex. This duplex could have a book written behind it. What I'm explaining doesn't even touch the surface, it's just grazing, you see. I have very little memory of this duplex since I was about 6 or 7. My family lived there for 2 years, but it felt like an eternity. I have a couple of memories, most of which being paranormal, but because I remember so little, I've been really wondering, did something happen with a doll that I've repressed? I'm sure a lot of people have family members who gift the new babies in the family a porcelain doll. I was born in 95. No idea if people still give newborns porcelain dolls or if it was a Greek thing. Either way, I had this porcelain doll in a light blue dress, white frills, curly blonde hair, attached to a swing. Never come out of the box until I was around 10 or so. I also loved the big, comfy couch. I had the little Molly doll with the plastic head, yarn hair, and stuffed body. She had these cardboard pieces you could put in as a bow or thought bubble or something. I was obsessed with Molly growing up. She was my favorite doll when I was really small. I don't really remember playing with her, but my mom said she was glued to me. She definitely looked very loved. I just don't remember. Anyways. So, after moving into my new home, years and years go by, and I'm digging through my Teddy's toy box. I find Molly and I'm excited. I've always slept with far too much in my bed, even to this day. My bed is all pillows, squishmallows, and a massive body pillow. I felt connected to Molly all of a sudden. So she stayed on the corner of my bed, against the wall and bed frame. She stayed like that for a few months until I started having these nightmares. If you've had messed up dreams, you know where you're in someone's house, but it isn't how the house is necessarily set up. It was like that. My cousin's bedroom was where my uncle's bedroom was. Remember, this is a dream. I'd walk to my cousin's bedroom and Molly would be kind of sitting against my cousin's pillows. The room was pink and purple, very girly. The sun was setting. The room looked pretty. I entered the room and my attention was immediately drawn to Molly. I felt so uncomfortable and on edge. By that point, I'm walking into her bedroom. I have this nauseating, horrible feeling hit me. Anxiety hits hard. I can't look away from Molly. When suddenly, of course, she slowly stands, still facing away from me. She's looking to my right, straight ahead. She'd levitate up and start to turn toward me. The room goes dark and I'm sprinting to the light switch. I can't find it. Once I do, it doesn't work. I grab the door and feel her behind me. I throw the door open and run down my uncle's hallway. I turn to see her floating behind me. My grandma, my dad, and uncle's mom is at the end of the hallway. She isn't dead, by the way. I run to her, her eyes are red, and she's just staring ahead. I'm screaming at her to do something. Then I jolt awake, normally sprinting to my light switch, terrified to turn it on. She was on my bed when this first started happening, remember? I had that dream a few times. Each time some stuff altered, but it was always the same until I got so fed up of these dreams, this loophole. I jumped down my uncle's stairs that passed the hallway. There were 20+ steps when I dived down. My head hit the ceiling part that leads you down the stairs. I'm pretty sure I broke my neck or something, but the last time I had that dream, I dove down the stairs and died. After these reoccurring nightmares, I tied Molly in a pillowcase and threw her under my bed. I still didn't feel safe, so she ended up in the crawl space. When my family moved nearly 10 years later, my mom took her out of the crawl space and I started to cry, like cry. But because I was so uncomfortable, I ended up giving her away. Turns out those Molly dollies can cost a lot nowadays. The duplex I lived in had a demonic entity. It approached me as my childhood dog when I lived in the duplex. I don't know if the demonic entity tortured me via toys and dolls. Now the porcelain doll. I had her on my wall, hanging on her swing, but I would stare at her all night, expecting her to turn her head, float, crawl to me. The stereotypical horror movie stuff. I ended up throwing her in something, and into the crawl space. I got rid of her too. I know it's rude since it was a baby gift, but I cannot stand dolls. 3. I want to preface this story by stating that I'm a very analytical person. I'm a technical business analyst, for God's sake, so my livelihood is to analyze and find reasoning behind every situation. But it's to the point where I can't deny that something is living in my family home, and it imitates my mum. I live in Queensland, Australia. In about 2004, we moved into a very old Queenslander home. Google Queenslander home, and you'll see the type of house I'm talking about. It was a big fixer-upper, with very high ceilings and a beautiful deck that caught the summer breeze perfectly. It was the first house built in the entire street over 150 years ago, and used to be a celery farm. Random, I know. About 15 years ago, my cousin was sleeping over one night. We were very close, and she told me all about her paranormal experiences. For context, her mother grew up in Indonesia, and was apparently into black magic, so she had seen and experienced a lot of the paranormal. "Is there anything in my house?" I asked her. "Yes," she replied. "She sits on the windowsill of your mum's room." "Is it bad?" I asked, not too sure if I wanted to actually hear the answer. "Just don't bother it," she said, shutting down the conversation. Fast forward a few years. I was sitting on my bed, studying with the door open. I then see my mum walk down the hallway with the washing basket, about to put on a load of laundry. About 5 seconds later, I see her walk down the hallway with the washing basket, going in the same direction she was before. I was baffled. How could she walk in the same direction twice? I tried to shake it off, thinking it was just my tired mind playing tricks on me. After all, I was studying and it was late. About a year passes, and I have forgotten the spooky incident of my mum walking in the same direction twice. It was a Friday afternoon, and I had my best friend over, and we were hanging out in the kitchen talking to my mum. Mum was cooking dinner, and me and my friend were just chatting away. My brother then appears from his room. "Where's dinner?" he asked. "Still another 30 minutes away," Mum replies. "But you just came into my bedroom and told me dinner's ready." We all froze, silent. Chills ran up the back of my spine as I remember the incident that happened a year prior. "No, I didn't," Mum responded. "Yes, you did," my brother exclaimed. "You knocked, opened my door, walked into the room and told me dinner is ready." I can vouch for my mum that she didn't do this. After all, I was with her the entire time. My brother shook his head. "Perhaps I'm imagining things," and walked back to his room. I knew he wasn't imagining things. From there, things got weird, but only for me. My brother never had another experience, and neither did my mum. My placid dog, a big, fat golden lab, would jump up from her sleep and growl and bark at the corner of the room. Doors that I closed would open up behind me, and always felt like something didn't want me there. Fast forward a few years, I had moved out of home, and was asked by Mom to dog sit while she went away for the weekend. I did. It was a hot summer night, and I was in the spare bedroom with the air conditioning on freezing cold. Then, at the exact same time, the air conditioning turned off. My phone went to Do Not Disturb, and the bedroom door flung open. I don't mean the door creaked open, I mean flung, as if something swung it open in anger. I jumped up and ran out of the room, calling my boyfriend, freaking out. He calmed me down, and for whatever reason, I stayed at the house. As a horror film fanatic, I know this was a dumb move. It became time for bed, so I went to take the dog outside to go potty before bringing her back in. She is a stubborn old thing, so I have to physically go outside and stand in the backyard with her. Otherwise, she will not go. Whilst we were outside and the dog was sniffing around trying to find her toilet spot for that evening, I felt something. I don't know how to describe it because I didn't actually see anything, but I felt something that looked like my mother, at the end of the backyard, standing and looking directly at me. I know that sounds weird, but the feeling was so strong. People will say it was your mind playing tricks on you, but it wasn't. Because I have never before nor since had a feeling like that before. It was like I was seeing something without actually seeing it. I sensed it, and I sensed it strong. She was in a nightgown, blonde, shoulder-length hair, looking just like my mother, except cold and emotionless and angry. I rushed the dog back inside and went to bed. Needless to say, I didn't sleep well that night. Whatever it was imitating my mother, it didn't like me. It never showed itself to my mum or brother, but for some reason loved to torment me. That was until recently. I was over at my mum's for dinner, and the topic of ghost stories came up. I brought up all the experiences I'd had at that house, and how I found it so strange that Mum never experienced it. Mum looked at me with a blank stare, almost as if she was trying to hold something in. "What is it?" I asked. "Well, the other week something happened." She began to tell me the story, which finally made her realize I was telling the truth. Except this time it imitated someone else. Mum was with her friend on the balcony, having some afternoon tea. "Where's the bathroom?" her friend asked. "Just down the hallway," Mum replied. Her friend then got up to go to the bathroom. From the balcony, you can pretty much see everything from the house, as it looked straight down the hallway. Mum looked down, eating her afternoon tea, and when she looked back up, she saw her friend walk out of the toilet and into my mum's bedroom. Mum shouted out, "What are you doing?" No response. Mum shouted a bit more, getting up from her seat to go see why she went into her room. Just as she was about to walk down the hall, there appeared her friend, walking out of the toilet. Nobody was in her bedroom. I don't know what this thing is that imitates people in my mum's house, but I know it's not nice. It's not friendly, and it doesn't want me around. All I can say is I'm glad I moved the fuck out. Has anyone else experienced anything like this? 4. I've been trying to figure out what exactly it was that happened, and that I saw, because I've tried to Google this numerous times, and the only thing that comes close to explaining the encounter is what they call shadow people. Okay, here's the story. It was January 2012. The house I was living in burned down out of nowhere. The boiler exploded. This is a whole other story in itself, and I don't want to sidetrack you and get off topic, but my family was living in the hotel because they had insurance, but my dog had just given birth the day before. Thank God all the puppies survived, but yeah. I would go to my house every day to make sure it was clean and that they had food, etc. I was with my two friends. We were all talking, standing next to each other, when all of a sudden, and this wasn't like in the movies where you see ghosts, it's like a human form, more like a gas/smoke type of black darkness, that went from one side of the room to the other in less than a blink of an eye. So fast it was like a black cloud of smoke, very dark, and I don't know how to explain it, but it wasn't like a humanoid figure. That's why I don't want to say it was a ghost, definitely, but it was something that was not normal, and there wasn't any smoke, nor was there any fire or anything that would cause this to happen. It just came out of nowhere and went from one side of the room to the other. When it happened, we all looked at each other and were stunned and speechless. And to this day, my two friends don't even like to bring it up, because they get freaked out. This is why I try to give the short version of the story, but my parents got divorced, and my family is Spanish, and I'm not really one to believe in the more superstitious side of the family like brujeria. Kind of like voodoo or witchcraft in a way. Sort of. After the divorce, things just went downhill. Bad things started happening. The house burnt down. My dog got sick out of nowhere one day. He just stopped eating, and we'd have to open his mouth and feed him. Eventually, he got so sick he had to be put down. My dad lost a lot of weight over the course of 3 weeks. Nobody knew what was wrong. It turned out he had an autoimmune disease. On top of everything else, a bunch of weird things started happening out of nowhere, and then, as I mentioned, the house caught fire from the exploding boiler. I'm convinced that there was a curse or something like that. I don't really like to bring it up because it sounds unbelievable, like something from Hollywood. If anyone has any similar experiences like this or knows what it is, please let me know. And this is something serious that's greatly affecting my family. So please, if you don't have anything nice to say, well, you get the idea. I'm really trying to find out what happened. 5. Okay, so some weird shit has been going on for a little while, but I kept brushing it off. But these past 2 weeks, it's been worse. We moved into our home a year and a half ago. Everything was great. I didn't have any weird feelings or bad thoughts in our house. It was built in 2006, is on property in a semi-rural area. The old owner was an old man who passed away. So his kids sold the house. Anyway, a few months pass and the mobile in my son's room is hanging from his light, and I noticed one day when I went in there that it was spinning on its own, like semi-hard. There was no draft, no heat or AC coming from the vents, so I made a note of it, but just brushed it off. It could have been anything, right? Well, a few months pass and the mobile only did that a couple of times, and it stopped and hasn't done it since. I always hear weird things in the house, like bumps or creaks, but just thought it was normal house sounds. Then, these last 2 weeks, weird things have been going on. My son wakes up from a dead sleep. My husband and I were still awake watching a movie in the living room. And my son gets up, standing in the corner of his crib looking at the corner of his room, screaming like he was terrified of something and shaking from being so scared. We grabbed him and did a full search of the room because that's never happened before. He's never done this. But the room was clear. Nothing out of the ordinary. We rock him back to sleep. Then the next day, my husband's truck started acting weird. The volume would go up and down on its own, change channels, turn off and on by itself. Would pick a song and then turn it all the way up on the radio. And when it was Bluetooth, it would choose its own song on my husband's phone and start playing in the speakers and would skip songs and so on. That lasted 2 days and it hasn't done it since. My parents came to town. We haven't told them anything that was going on because we just kept brushing it off. The next day, my husband was at work. My son was with my mom and I while we were bopping around town, checking out little shops. My dad stayed back and decided he wanted to take a nap. No one was in the house. When we got back, he asked us if we left the TV on or if there was a radio or something in the house. I said we don't have a radio and no TVs were on. And he told me he heard women singing or a radio playing music. He checked his phone, walked around the house but couldn't find what it was that was doing that. We don't have close neighbors and you wouldn't be able to hear a car radio from the street. But he thought it was nothing and took his nap. So that was it for about 4 days. Then a couple of days ago my husband and I and our son were out of town. My brother-in-law was staying at our house, watching over the animals. We once again didn't mention anything that was going on because there was a reasonable explanation, we thought. Didn't know what it was, but we knew we would find one. Anyway, when we came back, he told us that was a funny prank we played on him. When we asked him what he was talking about, he said us making sounds through our camera, trying to talk to him and mess with him. We told him we never went on camera while we were gone. I immediately went to unplug it. There's no SD card, so we weren't able to go back and look at anything. It's just a live feed camera connected to the Wi-Fi, so that was the next thing that just put me on edge. Then today, I'm sitting in the kitchen, feeding my son breakfast, and I hear what sounded like a man coughing in the room right next to the kitchen. No one was home, and it was a full coughing fit. The animals were all outside at the end of the property, so I know it wasn't them. That freaked me out. I immediately go do a check in my son's room and my room. I put my son in his crib, grabbed my gun, and walked to the other end of the house to check the room I heard that cough from. No one was there. I did a full sweep of the house and couldn't find anything, but I know I heard a cough. Then I go outside and I see the barn side door is open. That door is always locked and shut. And no one has been up there since last week, and the only two people that have keys are my husband and his father. Neither of them have been up there. This was early this morning. I freak out, call my father-in-law and my husband, and leave to my in-laws' house, thinking someone was in my house, and ran up to the barn when they figured I heard them. My father-in-law comes over and does a full sweep of the house and barn and nothing. He didn't see anything out of the ordinary. Finally, I'm convinced someone is living in our attic or crawl space. That's the only thing that seemed to make logical sense if I heard someone in my house, and my dad hearing music and my brother-in-law thinking he heard us talk to him through the camera. My husband does a full walk through the attic. Didn't find anything. Did a full walk through the crawl space, once again didn't find anything. Now I'm thinking that there could be an entity in my house. There's just so many strange coincidences going on at once. I have a family friend that is Native American and medicine woman. I asked her to come to the house and do a cleanse. I don't really know what else to think. My husband thinks I'm crazy, but said I need to do whatever I need to put my mind at rest with this, since I'm the one home all day with our son. Please let me know what you think of this situation. Thank you. P.S. We have 2 dogs and a cat. Neither of them act different or anything, which I'm aware that if there was something they'd act strange, but who knows. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Paranormal Stories, episode 358. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do poke the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel, then you can do so by clicking on the link to my Patreon. It'll take you right to the Patreon page, and you can choose to support me for as little as $1 or more a month. You'll also find a link to the Hellfreezer Teespring merchandise store where you can get yourself some merchandise. And if you enjoyed the video and would like to leave a tip, you can click that little heart with a $sign in the middle and leave the tip of your choice. You don't have to do this. Please don't think you have to do this, because you don't, but I do appreciate it, and thank you. Okay. I don't think we have any other business today. No, we don't. So let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, if you suddenly found a ghost in your house moving things around and helping you, you know, like suddenly you find a cup of tea appearing, or you're looking for your keys, and instead of the ghost hiding them, oh, there's the keys by the door, so you can grab them on the way out. Would you be glad for that, or would it freak you the hell out? I think it would take a little bit of adjustment, and with the understanding that the ghost averts its eyes when I'm in the buff, I think I might be okay with it. Wouldn't be my preference, but I might be okay with it. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.